Hi, hello, my name is Sydney and welcome to the very first vlog of my 2026 short story challenge, where every week I write a new short story from a random prompt. This is week 1 in all its very normal, slightly chaotic glory. And hey, somewhere between accidentally deleting footage and figuring out how to vlog for the first time, I learned a lot. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the process. I'll pop back in at the end to share some of the lessons that I learned this week and to pick next week's prompt. Before I get into today's festivities and start talking about my story, I first want to talk about yesterday and how my first day actually thinking about the story and trying to figure out what I'm gonna write went. So for context, it's been about 17 years. It's been about 17 years since I've written a short story of any kind. The last short story I wrote, like I said, 13 years ago. I was a senior in high school, and my teacher, shout out Mr. Ochoa, submitted our short stories and our poetry to this local literary competition, and I ended up winning, I think, 2nd place for my short story Frozen. And so I haven't thought about short stories or shorter form writing since then. In fact, I have actually, it's kind of embarrassing to say, have purposely avoided writing short stories because, in my opinion, short stories weren't really going to be worth it for me because I wanted to be a sci-fi novelist. So I've been focusing on the long form, 50 plus 1,000 words type of work. So yeah, so yesterday, which was the 6th, I started writing and started thinking about the prompt. It kind of took me a while to figure out how to, what I was going to write about, what point of view I was going to write it from, and all that kind of stuff. But I started to kind of get into the emotions and into the vibe of the story. And I actually ended up kind of figuring out the entire story that I wanted to write yesterday, which is great. But as I was kind of figuring out the scene structure and all that kind of stuff, I realized I don't know the structure of a short story. Obviously, I know that short stories follow a similar, all stories follow a similar beginning, middle, and end, and climax and all that kind of stuff. But I wasn't sure what the rules were. And yesterday, to figure out if there's just any guidance on how to write a short story, just so I can, I don't know, kind of make it easier on myself. If I know what the structure is supposed to be, I should be able to write it easier, especially since I am an outliner. I'm a hardcore, plotter. Love plotting, one of my favorite aspects of writing. Some would say I love plotting more than I like actually writing. Lock the tea, y'all. Anyway, I went online and I found this article on Lit Reactor. I've linked it in the description below. And the article is called How to Write a Short Story, A Writer's Ultimate Guide. So as I was reading through this article where the author has a story beat breakdown of the short story called The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Now, I have never read this short story. I've never even heard of this story or the author. I have come to find out that she is actually the author of The Haunting of Hill House. So, great. But when I first read this article, I had no idea who she was and what The Lottery is about. And so I clicked on the link that the author provided in the article, and it took me to the New Yorker. And I'm gonna play some footage of my actual reaction to reading the short story for the first time. And the kids collecting rocks, and I don't know what's going to happen. I've never read this short story before, But if they are going to stone someone to death, I don't know what to say. I don't know if that's going to happen. And if I posted this video, if you're actually watching me looking like this, that means I was probably right. Are they about to sacrifice somebody? I hope I'm not taking that wrong. I hope I'm not reading that. Is giving me sacrifice to the gods so we have a good harvest vibes. That short story had me in a chokehold last night. I was so stressed out, and I knew it was coming. And I love how Shirley Jackson just built up. She gave you little crumbs and little nuggets. And if you picked up on it, then you can kind of feel the uneasiness of the story and uneasiness of the characters. And I did pick up on it like almost right away. I said all of this to say that I think for the first time in a really long time, I'm actually like really inspired by a piece of work. Like I just love how the story was done. I don't read like horror or mystery very often. I'm a sci-fi girl. I read and write sci-fi. That's my jam, you know? But reading the story made me excited to go on this challenge and commit to this challenge. And it's even made me excited to write the current story that I'm writing right now and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to pop in and give you guys a little preview of like all the things that I've been doing. And I'll see you guys later. All right, so a little bit of an update. It is January 7th, 11:45 p.m. I'm gonna go to bed here shortly, but I wanted to hop on here and kind of show you guys or tell you guys how I've been doing. So I just kind of finished the general outline for the story. I made like a scene list and things that I want to include. And when I make a scene list, I typically also like to include the, what do you call it? What is the literal word? I like to include like certain details that I want to remember to write in there. Because like I said, I was really inspired by how well the lottery was written. And like, even though she gave you, Miss Jackson, like gave us like the crumbs and allowed us to go through the motions of the story and slowly feed us information, it didn't make the story any less interesting. And so I'm kind of taking that on. And so I've got like, I'll show you guys in a little bit. It's kind of a mess right now, but I've got like little like comments set up and stuff. Also, I'm using Scrivener to write all of these stories. They're going to be in like one big project. So if you guys want to know how I've set up my Scrivener and the settings that I use and all that kind of stuff, let me know. I would be more than happy to show you guys a tutorial about how I use Scrivener. It is Friday, January 9th, 2:04 p.m. I did not write yesterday. Kind of was a rough day, but I feel like I've given myself enough time to like think about the story, consider what I want to write. I also created like a kind of a mini outline. It's not very long. I think it's only like 1,000 words, and I kind of just wrote like the different notes that I wanted to like make sure I included in the story itself. But yeah, so I'm about to get started actually writing this. I'm probably going to finish it. My goal is to finish it tonight, finish the story tonight, and then have the time with on Saturday and then Sunday until it's due to kind of just like sit with it and edit it and that kind of stuff. So we'll see. All right, a little bit of an update. It is currently 2:23, and I've been here for about 2 hours. I've been drafting the entire time, and I've come to a realization about myself. I am actually a slow drafter. So yeah, I'm currently at 1,128 words, which is not bad, but I'm just writing slower than I thought I would, especially since I had it all planned out. Which brings me to another issue, which is my outline is going off the rails. Like, my short story is going off the rails. I initially kind of had come up with a general idea about the short story, and I was pretty much following that to a T. But now that I'm kind of at like the end of the beginning of the short story, what like the tone and the theme and like everything that I had kind of wanted to write about has kind of like shifted into something else. And it's not necessarily bad, it's just different than what I initially planned. And I'm not necessarily, I don't know if I'm necessarily like happy with that, but I'm not mad about it either. Like, it's going off the rails, the short story's going off the rails, but it's not bad, you know? So I think I'm going to toss out the outline and just kind of go with the flow. I don't know, does that like make me a discovery writer? Oh man, am I a discovery writer? Goodness. Anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an update. I'm gonna be here for a few more hours. We'll see how far I get before I have to leave. It is 3:57. I'm about to head out and go back home and actually do some grocery shopping before I go back home. But update currently, I'm at, I've done quite a bit of editing because I realized that the first half, or like the first initial beginning, kind of followed the outline that I was working on. But since I'm kind of throwing out the outline and I'm not going to use it anymore, I had to kind of go back and edit. So right now my word count is 1,661 words. I'm in a pretty good place. I've got, I think, about a little over one half of the short story complete. I don't want it to be too long, but I do want to end it. I know how I'm going to end it, and so I'm just kind of letting it kind of get there. But yeah, it's going well. I'm pretty excited. I still do need to like quiet my inner editor. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm writing so slow, is I'm trying to make it perfect like the first time around, and really you just can't do that. Or maybe you can, I just don't know how to do that. So I just need to learn how to just write and then edit later, instead of write, edit. Yeah. Hi, hello, my name is Sydney, and welcome to the very first vlog of my 2026 short story challenge, where every week I write a new short story from a random prompt. This is week 1 in all its very normal, slightly chaotic glory. And hey, somewhere between accidentally deleting footage and figuring out how to vlog for the first time, I learned a lot. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the process. I'll pop back in at the end to share some of the lessons that I learned this week and to pick next week's prompt. Hi guys, Editing Sydney here. Wanted to pop in and give you guys a little context to my journey through writing The Shape of Time, which is up now on my Substack. That was a story that I wrote this week for prompt 17. So initially, before I even started outlining, I had been ruminating about the idea ever since I picked it, and I realized that I think I wanted to kind of do a story where basically emotionally manipulate a character to have to leave their house during an invasion. So that is the initial idea that I had, and my main character, her name is Beverly. She has agoraphobia, which is just a fear of like just an intense fear and avoidance of places or situations where escape might be difficult or help unavailable. So because she has this, she stays in her house, she does not leave, and with modern convenience, she's able to order groceries. And so her initial obsession, before I just dropped the outline entirely, was coffee. I was going to have her be this coffee addict who can't live without her coffee, and since she has agoraphobia, she hasn't left her house in quite some time, she orders her groceries in every week and they come at the same time and she never has any issues. But in this story, on this particular day, there's an invasion happening, which she doesn't really know about because like she's in her own little bubble. And so she's trying to talk to customer service because her delivery is late, and she's like, she doesn't understand what's happening and she really can't go outside. So like someone needs to help her out. And as I got to that particular section of the short story, which is about halfway through the beginning, it was falling apart. Everything that I wanted to write or wanted to include, it just wasn't working. And so I took a step back, and there was basically 1 day between writing that particular section and when I eventually came back to it. And that break allowed me to realize that if the outline that I created or the light scene list that I created wasn't working, then I needed to just let it go. And that's what I did. I basically started just discovery writing from like that point onward, and I really, really liked how the second half came out. So within the second half, I added the character of Mara, and that kind of gave a little bit of emotional weight to the story, and why she decided not to, even leave her house, why she has agoraphobia. I wanted to include that because it just gave the story more weight. And so once I was able to tap into the grief that Beverly has, it was honestly the perfect scenario, and the second half flowed much better than the first half. And once I realized that I had to go back and edit, it took me a long time to really just kind of make this sections match, because obviously her obsession could no longer be about coffee. That wouldn't really make sense. It'd kind of be kind of goofy. I felt like it would be kind of goofy to make her obsession something so minor. So I didn't decide to do that. Her obsession went from coffee to being every year on her daughter's birthday, she makes a cake, and she makes it the same way every time. It's a recipe that she knows. It's a recipe that she made with her daughter. So she really needs everything to be just right in order to make the cake that tasted exactly like the ones that she made for her daughter when she was alive, right? So once I developed that emotional kind of depth and added that emotional depth, it was a lot easier to write. And it kind of shifted from comedy over to, like I said, more serious, but not no hope lost kind of a story. And so I got to about 2,700 words or so, and I gave it to my husband to review. And I like to have him review my stuff because he doesn't pull punches. He tells me when things aren't right. And he read it and he was just it was all over the place. So he was a bit confused, and he kind of gave me I was like, okay, so what parts when you're reading do seem to come out of left field or don't seem to make sense? And he kind of let me know what was up. And the problems that I was having were built around the fact that I outlined the first half and Pants the second half, or Discovery wrote the second half. So after I got the two halves meshing a lot better, the story flowed a lot more, and I was able to actually finish the prompt and post it onto my Substack. I'm not heavily editing these stories, just so you guys are aware. I don't really want to edit them that much. Once they're posted, they're posted. Although I did have to make one correction, because when I was talking about the amount of days that she spent in her apartment, which is 4 years is essentially what it is. So it's 1,461 days. And so I was trying to match that, the number theme to the square footage of her apartment in like the following sentence. And I just made that like 1,461 square feet. Because I was just trying to fill a word, so I did actually have to go find, I did have to go and change that from the original Substack email. So if you got the original, love that for you. Otherwise, the updated version does have the proper square footage for her apartment. So here's what I learned this week. Vlogging is an Olympic level sport. I genuinely underestimated how long everything would take, filming, refilming, editing. I can't believe the biggest lesson or moral that I learned this week didn't have anything to do with my creative writing at all. It had to do with learning how to vlog. This challenge is already off to a wild start. Anywho, lesson number 2, don't assume you know where your story will go. I love outlining. Like I said, stated previously earlier in the video, outlining is probably more fun to me than actually writing a book. But I started to outline the story and it fell apart by day 1. So letting the story surprise me actually made it stronger and made it kind of more enjoyable to write. Lesson number 3, consistency is more powerful than motivation. I did not feel inspired every day. In fact, I felt tired, hormonal as hell, just all around was not having a good time. But I showed up anyway, sat down, and got to writing. And that's what actually got the story finished. Lesson number 4, finished is better than perfect. This short story is not flawless. This vlog is not flawless, but they're complete and I've posted them publicly. So that's a win for me. All right, y'all, it is finally time to pick next week's prompt. See what we got here. All right, next week's prompt is going to be prompt number 15. Google is a person you have to talk to if you want to use the internet. This is a really weird one. Yeah, okay, cool. And that wraps up week 1. If you liked today's video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. I'll be posting new vlogs weekly as I work through the challenge. And if you want to read this week's short story, The Shape of Time, inspired by prompt 17, is currently on my Substack for free. The link is in the description box. Thank you all so much for watching and for cheering me on. I'll see you guys next week with a new prompt and a new short story. Peace.